Another Saturday live stream coming to you from Niagara-on-the-Lake here in lovely Canada. It is a beautiful summer day, first day of summer actually, and I know many of you would like to get outside, so let's get to it. Today we're going to be talking about dominant seventh chords. Now there's a reason why they're called dominant seventh chords. I think it's because they dominate big time in jazz, because they create dissonance. A typical dominant seventh chord has something called a tritone, which no other chord in the scale has. If you went up the scale, the leading tones, which are the third and the seventh, dictate what type of chord that it is. Now, the minor 7 flat 5 has a tritone, but it's not the leading tones. The leading tones are the third and the seventh. So that means that it's a chord unlike any other chord in the key of the moment. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about ways to play the dominant seventh chord versus ways not to play it. Now, there are definitely things to avoid, and we're going to touch upon those things as well. Just let me know if you can hear my voice okay, and if you heard the piano okay, and that we're good to go. I'm going to play a little bit in just a minute. First thing I'm going to do, though, is post a link to the sheet music. I got a bit of a surprise for you today. I don't know why it didn't cache in my thing, so I got to go grab the link again. And let me put that in the chat. I'm going to pin it to the top of the chat. Don't go all at once. Kind of slows the website down. Don't necessarily need it for today, and it'll be there until the end of the session. And looks like sound is good, piano and voice, and we're good to go. Now, what I want you to listen for in this lovely arrangement, I'm going to put the sheet music up on the screen. This is brand new. I haven't offered this ever before. In fact, as soon as we're done today, I'm going to put it in the online store and put a price on it. But today, for you, for being here and being so great, it's free. And what it is, it's a transcription of the way that I play You Don't Know What Love Is. Now, there is a lot of dominant seventh chords in this, which is perfect for our discussion today. What I want you to listen for is the dissonance that I create throughout the tune. If you do not know what the word dissonance means, and it's new to you, it basically means a chord or a series of chords that sounds harsh to the ears. Dissonance means it needs to be resolved. And that's the beauty of jazz. It's the concept of dissonance versus resolution. Getting as dark as you need to be to make your point, and then resolving it so that the ear goes, oh, what a relief, that's over. But it's that back and forth between dissonance and resolution that creates great jazz. And that's what we're looking for from our chord voicings. Just a quick shout out to those of you that are here early. And there's a lot of you, so I'll try to get to all of you. Rich, Friedrich, Shell, Alan, Keith, Don, Jerry, Amodi, lots of people from our paid masterclasses. Thank you for being here. And for those of you that are considering maybe joining and getting a more structured approach to teaching, the Jazz Piano Masterclasses information can be found on jazzmental.com. We'd love to have you in those courses. One coming up next week, actually, next Wednesday. I look forward to that. Let's see, Friedrich, Alan, I'm probably repeating some names. Edgel, Philip, Steve, Karen, nice to see you too. And let's see if I can remember names. I've got a little cheat sheet here. Right, David. One of the ones that I have a hard time remembering, David. I'm so sorry about that. But glad you're joining us from London today. And Peter from Italy. Okay, so let me play. You Don't Know What Love Is. I'm going to take it off the screen because I can't scroll and it's going to be distracting. So for those of you that do grab it successfully, please write that you were able to download it in the chat. That really helps me out, makes me happy that the links are working. It does take some time to put those together and make sure that everybody gets their downloads. All right, let's play You Don't Know What Love Is. Listen for the dissonance and let me know what you think after we're done. And even pose some questions as we're going through it. That would be good. Thank you. think it's a really nice tune. If you don't know the tune, again, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Thank you for letting me know that you were able to get the chart download, Keith. I appreciate that. Really helps me on my end. Greetings to newcomers. You got Ben and Charlie, Peter, and Keith. Good to see you. And greetings from Gstad. Nice. Samazg. Okay. If you're new here, we do this every Saturday, same time, same place. I hope to see you again in another stream session. All right, let's take the sheet music off the screen for a moment. Let's talk about dominant sevenths. First question is, how many of you heard the dissonance in that tune? The concept of dissonance and resolve, right? Going from here to here. That is what really makes good jazz, in my opinion, especially as a piano player. Now, if you're a single note instrument like trumpet or saxophone, you can still make dissonance, you just have to do it one note at a time. We, on the other hand, have the luxury, like guitar players, to do multiple notes at a time, and that's when things get a little tricky too, because you have to make good sounds out of those dominant seventh chords. All right. So first let's talk about the dominant seventh chord itself. Now, I mentioned that if you go up the scale in tertian harmony, this is 1 3 5 7, 1 3 5 7, 1 3 5 7, 1 3 5 7, and so on, all the way up to back to C. Okay, so we're in the key of C for the moment. The only chord, 1 3 5 7, that contains a tritone. Now, a tritone is basically not a perfect fourth. It's like an augmented fourth. So if you go from F to B, that's an augmented fourth. The perfect fourth would be F to B flat. So that's what makes it unique, because it's the only chord that contains this augmented fourth. Okay? Now, if I do inversions of this C major seventh chord, this is first inversion, second inversion. I can also go up the scale as well. Still contains a tritone because you're staying in the key of the moment. Now, that tritone needs to do something because it's dissonant. Listen to it. Unlike this chord, unlike this interval, major fourth, perfect fifth, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, a augmented fourth is just harsh. Now, there is another interval that's just as harsh as that, in fact, more harsh. It's this interval, which is a flat 9. Natural 9, that works, everything works, but a flat 9 is harsh. But we're sticking to chord tones, not flat 9s. So chord tones are the third and the seventh. And the reason why that's important is because this needs to resolve. That's what we call a dominant cadence, 5 to 1. So think of it like this. This is the thing I think that helped me the most. When I'm thinking about dominant seventh chords in the early days, I don't really think in these terms anymore, but in the early days, I thought to myself, only one of those notes needs to resolve. Which one? And the answer is the flat 7. So if this is the third of G7, and this is the flat 7 of G7, the third resolves to C to become the major seventh chord. So that doesn't need to resolve. It's kind of already there. But the flat 7 needs to fall to become the third of the next chord. That's a writer downer. All seventh chords, the flat 7 falls to become the third of the next chord. Doesn't matter whether it's the major third or the minor third. For example, in a dominant seventh to minor, it resolves to become the minor third, and the third falls to become the flat 7. Okay? But in this particular case, we're going to major. This 7 needs to fall to here. Listen to this. G7 to C major 7. Listen to that. Falls, one note. Okay? Now, in classical harmony, there's no such thing as major sevenths. If it is, there's a mistake in there and it's probably modern music. They didn't use major sevenths because they didn't really know what upper structure notes were or extensions, so they just kind of avoided it. But if it were a classical harmony, it would be a dominant seventh chord, which they have, going to one major without the seventh. This was too, I guess, thin for classical players. I'm not sure the terminology, but it really didn't come around until the 20th century. So that's more jazz harmony versus. So the seventh rises to become the root, and the third rises to become the root, the seventh falls to become the third of the next chord. Okay, now that we got that harmony out of the way, and I'll get to the questions in just a second. Now that we got that simple concept out of the way, that you need dominant seventh chords to create dissonance because they contain what? A tritone. And a tritone is an augmented fourth. Seventh falls to become the third of the next chord. Now that you know that, do not play dominant seventh chords like this. Why? If you just actually listen, so it's root position, dominant seventh. You can play any other chord like that. For example, C major seventh, D minor seventh, E minor seventh, F major seventh, but as soon as you get here, it just sounds so bad. So that's, and a lot of piano players make this mistake. It's, oh, dominant seventh chord, so I'll just play it in root position. No, root position is like the kiss of death to a jazz piano player. Don't do it. Stay away. What you do instead is you use a formula. Now, I introduced this formula earlier on this week in a video that was like 6 or 7 minutes long. But essentially, if you do 3, 5, 7, and 9 of each of these chords, so this is 1, 3, 5, 7 of C minor, but if you do 3, 5, 7, and 9, you use this. So you're still building in thirds and go up the scale from there. Does that make sense? So when you do that, you get to this chord called the D minor 7 or D minor 9 chord, right? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So this is the starting point. This chord sounds fine in root position. It's a D minor 7 without the root. Okay? Basically what happens here is the seventh of this chord, just like dominant seventh, falls to become the third of the next chord. And this is a G13 chord. Why is it a 13? Because the 13 is the E and the 9th is the A. When you say G13, 9 is implied. So D minor to G7. Listen to this chord versus this chord. Versus this. You hear the difference? They're both G7 chords, except this one is voiced differently. So this is an absolute do. Go 3, 5, 7, and 9 of minor in root position. Seventh falls to become the third to make the dominant seventh chord, and then the two outer notes fall to become the major seventh chord. So it's going from here, G7, this note falls to become the 9th of C major 7th, and this note falls to become the 3rd of C major 7th. Now, that formula can be repeated. Get the idea? So I would suggest you go back and download the sheet music from that lesson, which dropped, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday. Go download that sheet music. I also apply it to Autumn Leaves. But I wanted to specifically talk about the dominant seventh chords because as you're doing this, you come across this voicing right here, which is really a great voicing for any dominant seventh chord. Now, if you go up in minor seconds, they all sound great. The thing about dominant seventh chords is they often follow each other around. So for example, we call those subdominants. So a G7 chord can have a dominant chord in front of it. What would that be? It'd be 5 above G, which is D. But because we're in the key of C, this is a secondary dominant. So this is the voicing that I'd play for D7, and it just goes down a half step to become G7. So And that's actually in this tune. There's a D7 chord falling to become G7 or D flat 7. Okay? So try to remember, in order to get to this voicing, you have to start and think 2 minor 7 to 5 7 to 1 major 7. So this voicing. Now, one extra step is actually to remove a note from that to make it sound even cooler. And the note that we remove is this one. So instead of a 4-note chord, you've now got a 3-note chord. The difference between these two is nominal. Listen. Versus this. The ear can't really determine the difference. Now, the good news about this voicing is you don't even have to think about 2 minor 7, 5 7 to C major 7. What you can do instead is just think of the tritone and add a perfect fourth on top. So B to E is a perfect fourth. So you got a tritone, augmented fourth, perfect fourth. This is so much easier to get around. Right? It's so much easier to do that than think 4 notes. Okay? I use this voicing all day long. If that's the only thing that you take out of today's course, then that's good enough for me because it's important. Dominant 7th, augmented fourth or tritone, perfect fourth above the upper note. Just like that. Okay. Let's take a look at a couple of questions. Question says, David, in the opening sequence, is that chromatic run up using a drop 2 voicing? Can you show an alternative chording? Yeah, it is drop 2. We'll get there in a second. We haven't actually analyzed the download yet, but what we did was this. Or those 2 chords, right? So yeah, we were using a drop 2 voicing. So F minor to C flat, C7 flat 9, to F minor to C7 flat 9, to F minor to C7 flat 9, to F minor to C7 flat 9, to G7 augmented, whole tone scale. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. We will analyze the sheet music momentarily, but I wanted to get this dominant 7 stuff out of the way. Friedrich says, or asks, why is the D minor chord starting on F is in root position? Isn't this the first inversion? No, it's not. So what I'm suggesting to you, Friedrich, is that the first chord doesn't need the root. If you were doing, just because we say root position, it's root position for the chord plus its extensions. So the extension is a 9th. Do you get that? So this is an F minor 7th chord. This is a D minor 7th chord. This is a D minor 9th chord. We're throwing out the root. Let the bass player cover that, and we'll handle 3, 5, 7, and 9. It's still root position. Second inversion of this would be this. This is second inversion of this chord. How do we know it's second inversion? Take the 2 bottom notes and move them to the top. And so instead of getting this, 2, 5, 1, you get this. 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1. Inner notes fall to become 1. And the reason why we use root position and root position and second inversion chords is because you want to stay within C3 to C4, G4 in this area. You get up too high, it starts sounding really thin. It sounds okay, but the left hand, it gets up here, it starts to interfere with the right hand. So kind of keep it in this range, C3 to G4, right? This is C4, this is G4. So, and if you get too low, for example, listen to this. It starts to get really muddy down here. So what you would do in that case is, we're doing a 2-5-1 of A flat, go way up here and do the second inversion, right? We took the two notes from the bottom here, took these two notes, D flat and F, and we moved them to the top. The seventh faults become the third of the next chord, making an E flat 7 chord, and then the two inner notes fall to make it an A flat major 7th chord, or A flat major 13th chord. Friedrich, I hope that answers that question. This is not first inversion of D minor 7th. This is root position, because we're assuming that the root is being covered by the bass. Okay? Root position, first inversion, second inversion. 2 minor 7, G7, C7, C major 7. Okay. What to do now? I don't want to fill your heads up with too much, but think about your dominant 7th chord as either this or this. I like the fourths. You got a augmented fourth and a perfect fourth. That's easily changeable and moves around easy. Practice a scale like that, a chromatic scale. Okay? And I realize we're focused solely on left hand for right now, but that's okay. That's a good start, okay? The only other thing that I would say is that this tritone for G7 is the same tritone for D flat 7. Okay? This would be the third of D flat 7, and this would be the 7th of D flat 7, or flat 7. This is the 7th of G7 and the 3rd of G7. So they alternate, right? This is the 3rd of D flat, the flat 7 of D flat. So the same tritone works in both of those situations. This is not just a G7 chord, it's a D flat sharp 9 chord, right? In a D flat scale, this note is a sharp 9, right? Natural 9. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Oh, you're right. It is a sharp 9. Flat 9, sharp 9. I don't know. My brain is a little twisted right now. So in a D flat scale, this is the flat 9. This is the sharp 9. Got a little confused there for a second. Again, I have to really think about this stuff after so many years. But anyway. So D flat 7, sharp 9, or G7 with 13. Same chord. And in the tune that we're working on, there is a D flat 7 with a sharp 9 in there. Now the interesting thing is, if you play a G7 scale over this, or you play a D flat 7 scale, it works. Now the other thing is too, is when you're playing a D flat 7 with a sharp 9, you might want to put in the natural 9 like this. Okay? Just a little bit of advanced stuff for the people who are looking for soloing ideas. How are we doing? Does this all make sense? Just let me know in the chat. Yeah, makes total sense. If it's not making sense, then perhaps post a question so that it makes more sense to you. I don't want to move on until everybody's on the same page. Okay? Now, if you're going to add the right hand to these voicings, we typically think about the left hand without roots. So this voicing for G7 or this one, doesn't contain the root. So we can do that. What does the right hand do? Does the right hand do this? Listen to how bad that sounds. This is a root position G7 chord. Okay? So don't duplicate anything you're doing in the left. If you duplicate it by accident, for example, you play that note, or that note, or that note, they all work. It's just, why do you need to do it? Because you've already got that. Typically what the right hand does is it'll play either the melody note or some type of extension. So the extensions on G7 are 9, sharp 11, and 13. You can't use this note because it creates a flat 9 with the root. So you can't use a natural 11th. Listen to that. Sounds wrong, but this sounds great. So typically 9, sharp 11, and 13. So the right hand is now free with this simple chordal voicing in the left hand to play these. A G7, sharp 11 chord. The other thing that you can do is you can use flat 9s and sharp 9s in the right hand. For example, flat 9. Listen to that chord. Beautiful. Flat 9 or sharp 9. Now, if you use a sharp 9, it's a bit of a problem because you get this major 7th in the middle of this thing. So what you have to do is you have to voice that chord a little bit differently versus this one, which sounds really cool, flat 9. Sharp 9, you kind of have to avoid that voicing. So what you do instead is you use this voicing, which is, if we're in the key of D flat, this is the 9th, and that's the 13th. In G7, this is a flat 13, right? And this note is a sharp 9. So G7, flat 13, sharp 9. Okay? Here's the inversion. One more time. Flat 13, 7th, sharp 9. You can't play this chord because of that, but this works. So if you want to use sharp 9s, you have to change the chord slightly. Okay? If solo piano, no bass player, would you still use that voicing? Yes, I would, Shell. The only difference is I may or may not hit the bass note before it. For example, I'm going to go to a D7 sharp 9 chord. This chord that we just did was G7 sharp 9. This chord is a D7 sharp 9 flat 13 chord. I'm going to go to that chord, but before it, I'll hit the bass note. Bass note. Like that. D7, D flat 7 to C7 sharp 9. One more time. You don't always need the bass note, but it does sound cool if you do it. In that case, I played the chord before playing the root. One more time. I'll analyze the tune You Don't Know What Love Is in just a moment. I just wanted to kind of get this basic chord voicing stuff out of the way. So, two things to avoid One, do not play a dominant 7th chord in root position with the root. It just sounds wrong. Swap it out for this chord or this chord. Okay, they both contain the tritone, but both of them have extensions to soften this. Now, by soften, you still have the right amount of dissonance. It just sounds a lot cooler. Okay. So that's the first thing to avoid. The second thing to avoid is that when you play a sharp 9 on any chord, let's say G7 sharp 9, this is the sharp 9 here. You cannot play that with this chordal voicing or any voicing like that, because it clashes with the third of the chord. It creates what's called a major 7th in a dominant 7 situation. So you can't do it. What you can do instead is change the voicing so that you're removing and putting notes in between the chord to make it sound cool. It's still got the tritone without this note. Listen to what it sounds like. Still sounds okay, but you put that note in, another extension, it starts to sound really cool. Okay? These are the voicings that I'm talking about. They all sound cool. All right. I see that a few people earlier on said made sense. I'm glad it does. I think I'm going to pull back one moment and take a look at the sheet music that I'm going to put on the screen. So this is my transcription of You Don't Know What Love Is. I basically played it pretty close to this in the beginning. And I want to take a look at the dominant 7th chord specifically in this tune. So the first one that we come across is a D7 sharp 9 flat 13 chord, one we've already talked about. Notice in the left hand, I'm not even playing the root here. It's got the 9th in the root. And then it gets to the D7 chord. And then we play this D7 sharp 9 flat 13. There's another way to write that. You could say D7 augmented, but I like sharp 9 flat 13. Kind of sounds a little bit nicer. And then we get to the D. So all of these are dominant 7th chords, right? This is dominant 7th, dominant 7th, dominant 7th, dominant 7th. So they've got a bunch of dominant 7th chords in a row. Let me make sure you can see that on your screen. Yes, you can. Good. Dominant 7th. And then this is a D flat 9 chord. Now, the interesting thing about this chord is that it does not contain the 7th, the flats, or the 3rd in the right hand, but the left hand handles it. Listen. So you're in the right hand, the sharp 9 is fallen to become the natural 9. Right? Like this. So you've got voice leading going on here. You've got D flat 7 with a sharp 9 going to a natural 9, going to C7, C9 sus to C flat. So it goes from here in minor seconds. That's voice leading. Voice leading means moving notes between chords that create inner movement. Let's talk briefly about this sequence. Somebody asked about it before, where we're going from G half diminished 7th to C7 flat 9. I mean, take a look at all the dominant 7th chords here. There's a lot of them. We're taking a break from them, going G half diminished 7th, but what we're doing is we're reharmonizing the melody. So this is the melody. So whenever I see melodies that move in the key, in this case the key of A flat, whenever I see the scale itself, I think 6 diminished scale reharmonization. So I take whatever the 6th chord is, in this case it's an F minor 6th chord, change it to an F minor 7th, and then every other chord is C7 flat 9. This last one changes. Okay? So 6 diminished scale. Now, here, try to remember that all tritones are changeable or interchangeable with their tritone substitutions. So if we change this chord, which we did, to a G7 chord, remember they contain the same tritone. If we change the chord, then you change the sound. Listen to this. To D7, D flat 7. Let's try going to G7 this time. Now, the reason why that sounds very different is because not only is the root different, but the tritone is the same. We're using this voicing, which is a flat 5, and so this is the sharp 11 or flat 5 of G7, and this note. Now, that's a flat 13, but the thing is, if you go up the scale and you put those two notes different, you get what's called a whole tone scale. It's the only scale where the intervals in between every note is a whole tone. So that frees you up to do things like this. Just playing something around the whole tone scale. So one more time. And then continue the tune. And I specifically wanted to talk about those 2-5-1 progressions, which aren't part of the original sheet music. I'm not going to have to scroll. That's good. Let's just start here. So we're going to do from here to here. And all this is, you have to think about it like destination chord is D flat 7 here. Is it off your screen? No, it's there. Can't see the chord itself, but at least the chord symbol is there. So we're heading there. A 2-5-1 of D flat is, of course, E flat minor 7, or E flat minor 11 in this case, right, to A flat. So that's a 2-5. If you put a 2-5 in front of the E flat and make the E flat the destination chord, you've got F minor 11 to B flat 13. So this is a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. One of the most common progressions in jazz, but you want to make it uncommon by adding some dissonance. How did I get that there? I need to get that off of here. There we go. Let's erase all of that. And F minor 11th. Interesting thing about that voicing is it's voiced in fourths. Perfect fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, and a major third. Now the reason why this chord sounds so neat is because it's got a sharp 11 and a flat 9. So B flat 7, think about C over B flat. The sharp 11 is the E natural. So, and then I do it again. These are not melody notes, by the way. There is nothing there. I'm just adding those notes to make it more interesting. There's more voice leading. Back to the top. voice leading. 6 diminished scale. D flat 7 with a ninth. Three, 6, 2, 5, 1. Now, don't get confused, by the way. We're in the key of A flat, but we still consider this to be one of 3, 6, 2, 5. You're probably thinking, well, hey, Paul, we're in the key of A flat. Isn't 3, 6, 2, 5 C minor 7 to F7 to B flat 7 to E flat 7 to A flat? Yes, it is, but we're not heading to A flat. We're heading to D flat. So we're doing, okay? The D flat 7 is a secondary dominant chord. The actual dominant chord in the key of A flat is, of course, E flat. Okay. Questions are welcome. If you can think of one. I think the explanation to this point is good. I don't really have anything else to add other than this. When thinking about extensions of a G7 chord and any dominant 7th chord, think first 9th and 13th, and then whatever you want to do with the 11th you can do, but it has to be at a minimum of sharp 11. It can't be anything else. But you can start changing any of these to the flatted versions. So natural 9, natural 13 to flat 9, flat 13. But as soon as you do that, this sounds fine. As soon as you go there, again, you have to change the voicing, right? So in order to accommodate those notes, you have to change the voicing. Okay? You can put flat 9s with sharp 9s. You can put both of those with sharp 11s. You can put flat 13s with flat 9s and sharp 9s. Any sort of combination of those upper structure notes changes it. So this to maybe this, to maybe this, to maybe this. Okay, so play around with the extensions. Voice leading, moving those extensions from one extension to the next chord is always a good idea, which is what we did here on this part of the tune. When we're doing bar 2 right at the top from D flat 9, sorry, bar 3. Okay, get creative with your extensions, but try to use some voice leading on the inner notes. Wow, time is really moving. That's a lot of explanation. Allison says, I forgot about this. Sorry, I will be rewatching this. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. If you haven't caught everything, to rewatch it. That's a good thing about YouTube and live stream is as soon as the live stream is finished, the replay starts. So you can watch it as many times as you like, and it's 100% free to do that. I did want to point out, by the way, quickly, that in the email that I sent you for those of you that have downloaded today's free sheet music, which is still pinned to the top of the chat. When you do that, I'm going to send you an email with today's sort of insider live stream participant code, which gets you 50% off. Now, easily the most popular sheet music I have on my channel is a transcription of The In Crowd by Ramsey Lewis, which is a transcription that I wrote out note for note because it didn't seem to exist anywhere. And I sell that with the backing track. So bass and drums, I put that together, and then the entire solo from Ramsey Lewis, plus all the chord voicings in the head section and the outro. So the entire arrangement is there. It is a very popular download. I sent you a coupon code for 50% off. I definitely think it's worth checking out. And every purchase that you make here on the Jazz Mental channel goes to helping us continue our mission of supporting jazz musicians worldwide. Thank you in advance for doing that. Let's play a little bit more, and let's see if you can come up with any more questions regarding dominant seventh chords or anything else that's in what I'm about to play. Really what I tried to do there was just play single notes in each hand. It's a good exercise to try if you're ever thinking about challenging yourself in a way, is to make music with as few notes as possible. So in this case, all I'm doing is playing bass notes in half time. I think if you can just really think outside the box a little bit and do something you're not used to doing, that's a great challenge. So try that sometime. Just single notes in each hand and see if you can make some music out of it. Rhythm, in that case, is the most important thing. If you're playing it out of time like this, it doesn't sound nearly as good as if you put some swing behind it. Okay. Hello, Francia. Glad you could make it. Allison, rephrasing an earlier question on Masterclass. What's the experience level? All pro or close to pro? Already good at jazz, interested, but don't want to drag the class down. Nobody in our Masterclasses, paid or otherwise, is a pro. Now, I don't want to misstep there because I do think we do have some more advanced people that are doing things like playing in church. I'm not sure if that's paid or not. Probably is. So I guess in that sense, they're pros. But in terms of pro-level jazz, like musicians who can play concerts for jazz, I don't think we have that. I don't want to... There's some good players, but most of them would be intermediate, upper level, sort of lower level, intermediate to upper level. We have kind of like all kinds. And Allison, it's really not a risk, because if you join and you decide that it's not for you, it's just month to month. Like, we're not going to keep you and hold you to some like 5-year contract or anything. It's like, if you don't like your piano teacher, which is essentially me, then you can just drop it. And I can tell you that most people do not. They stay with it because it's a very, very structured approach. Jerry or Amodi, or let's see who else is here today. Or Karen. I'm calling on you to kind of answer her question. Peter, Alan, Dawn. I mean, if you could give in the chat area an answer to Allison, tell her what level you're at, and tell them, yeah, so there's Amodi. He says, I know I'm not even close yet, but I'm enjoying the ride and the experience. But also, Amodi, I can tell you this, your playing has improved a lot. You send me your recordings, and I can tell you, you put a lot of thought into them, and you're definitely going to improve and have been improving, even though you've been in it for a short time. So I think maybe, Allison, that answers your question. It's very structured. I give a whole lesson plan. The sheet music that we usually give away is not available to anyone else. And it's definitely a private experience. It's also Zoom, which means that if you come on the Zoom masterclass, it's not like this. We actually communicate and talk to each other, and we have discussions, which I think is very important. All right. I'm not going to throw any more harmony at you today. I can tell by the lack of really like extensive questions that I might be overdoing it a bit. Allison says, okay, I'm in for a month. Good. it starts Wednesday. So join before Wednesday and you'll get all of, plus you'll get last month's masterclass when you join as well. We always kind of like give you the previous one. So all of the sheet music downloads and everything will be available. So it's almost like you're buying 2 months for 1 month free. 2 months for, yeah, you pay 1 month, you get 2 months free. But the past one is already recorded. But you can definitely submit music to me and I'll analyze it and give you some constructive feedback. Don says, like Emoti, I'm a reasonable piano player. You're more than reasonable, but very junior in jazz. I'm working on it. I love it. I wouldn't say that. People tend to underestimate their abilities. I don't think you're very junior in this thing at all, Don. In fact, you're grasping every single concept that we're handing out. So I love the self-deprecation, but honestly, you're a much better player than you're letting on. Okay. Let's play a little bit more and see how we can make some neat sounds, and then we'll call it a day. Just before I did that, I did want to say a lot of you have put Nancy in your prayers lately. Thank you. I really appreciate that because she won this last battle, which many of us didn't think she was going to win, including the doctors, and she pulled through. And we're not out of it yet, obviously. There's a long road back, but she is definitely has been released from the hospital, is feeling much better these days. And we have a lot of next steps to cover. In fact, the road to recovery is a long one. And I just want to thank everybody for the shout outs that you've given us, either on the Facebook Jazz Pianist group or at Jazz Mental, personal emails, even on these live streams. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your thoughts because it helped a lot. Prayers are everything in this thing, and our heads are on straight, and we're heading in the right direction. We are definitely improving day to day right now. So thank you. Just to kind of show you that you can do anything with a ballad like You Don't Know What Love Is. And you can play it up-tempo swing. Lots of people do that at jam sessions and on gigs, and I think it's a great tune. The dominant sevenths kind of make things really easy. The thing about dominant seventh chords and soloing is that there's really no wrong notes. So if I do a series of these dominant chords, listen to this. All of those are different keys, but yet I'm sticking to the same key in the right hand. So there are no wrong notes in terms of dominant seventh. Every note is available, and that's kind of what makes soloing a little bit easier. As long as you play proper patterns and it makes some kind of musical sense, then you're good to go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again this week. Please check out this week's insider deal that I sent you by email. And again, everything that you do helps the channel. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a great day. I am going to take my lovely wife, Nancy, out for lunch today, which we honestly haven't done in such a long time. I'm very much looking forward to it, that she's feeling well to do that. And for those of you that have commented about Nancy's strength, Martin and Don and Rich, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we will see you all next week, same time, same place, here on the Jazz Mental YouTube live stream. And that's it for me. Have a great day, everyone. I hope you enjoy your weekend.